Welcome to Spectrum News at 10. I am Emedion James, coming to you live from Uyo. Let's take a look at today's headlines. President Tinubu arrives in Rome for counter-terrorism meeting. Federal government emphasizes on no work, no pay policy as ASU begins 2-week warning strike. Plus, first 7 hostages released in Gaza return to Israel. We'll bring you details of the stories and more in just a moment. Many thanks for staying tuned. First in the news this morning is that President Bola Tinubu has arrived in Rome, the capital of Italy, to participate in the Aquaba Process Head of State and Government level meeting. President Tinubu is in Rome for the Aquaba Process meeting, which is a counter-terrorism initiative launched by King Abdullahi II of Jordan in 2015. The meeting, which is co-chaired by the Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan and the Italian government, focuses on the security crisis in West Africa. The meeting will begin on October 14 and will bring together heads of state and government, senior intelligence and military officials from African countries, and representatives of intergovernmental and non-governmental organizations to discuss evolving security challenges in West Africa. It recognizes the complex security challenges confronting West Africa, including the expansion of terrorist networks, the growing crime terror networks, and the increasing overlap between land-based terrorism in the Sahel and maritime piracy in the Gulf of Guinea. The meeting will discuss ideas on how to coordinate efforts to combat online radicalization and disrupt digital networks that facilitate terrorist propagandas and recruitment. In addition to attending the plenary session of the Aquaba meeting, Tinubu will hold bilateral talks with other leaders to explore ways of addressing the rising security challenges across the sub-region. Away from that, the presidency says there is no plan to replace the Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, Wale Edun. This was contained in a statement stressing that he was recuperating in his Abuja home after falling ill. It also dismissed rumors that the minister suffered a stroke or had been flown abroad for treatment. The special advisor to the President on Information and Strategy, Bayo Onanuga, said the minister is receiving medical care in Nigeria. The clarification from the presidency followed speculations that President Tinubu was considering replacing the minister after a report of his ill health emerged last week. Earlier, the presidency had confirmed that Edun would not be attending this year's World Bank and International Monetary Fund annual meetings in Washington, D.C., stating that the governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Olayemi Cardoso, has led Nigeria's delegation in his state. Appointed on August 28, 2023, as Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, Edun has been at the forefront of the President Tinubu's fiscal reform agenda, including efforts to stabilize the naira, reduce inflation and attract foreign investment. In a separate development, as the Academic Staff Union of Universities ASU embarks on a 2-week warning strike today, the federal government has emphasized that the no work, no pay policy remains an existing labor law of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. The government stated that it will be guided by this law should academic activities be disrupted in the nation's universities. In a statement signed by the Director of Press and Public Relations at the Federal Ministry of Education, Folasade Bororo, the government reaffirmed that while it continues to demonstrate goodwill and flexibility, it is not abdicated its responsibility to uphold fairness and accountability in the use of public resources. The statement, however, reassured Nigerian students, parents, and the general public that the federal government remains firmly committed to maintaining industrial harmony within the tertiary education system. It added that the Minister of Education has appealed to all academic unions to embrace partnership and dialogue rather than confrontation in the collective interest of the nation's higher education sector. In another development, the Department of State Services (DSS) has cautioned the public against dealing with one Victor Onyedikachi Godwin, a dismissed officer allegedly using the agency's name to defraud unsuspecting individuals. In a statement issued today, the DSS said Godwin was sacked from the service but has continued to parade himself as a serving officer while engaging in fraudulent activities. According to the statement, the former staff has been using the name of the DSS to extort money from members of the public under various pretenses. The DSS urged Nigerians to avoid any dealings with Godwin or anyone claiming association with him. It advised that all legitimate requests, inquiries, or complaints should be directed to the service through its official contact channels. Away from that, the Socio-Economic Right and Accountability Project, SERAP, has asked the newly nominated chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission, Professor Jose Amputan, to prioritize and ensure the effective prosecution of politicians and their sponsors who are suspected to be responsible for electoral offences, including violence, bribery, vote buying, conspiracy, and undue influence during the general elections and off-cycle elections since 2015. Serap made the call in a letter signed by the Deputy Director, Kolawole Oluwadaren. According to him, impunity for past electoral offences is a major barrier to free and fair elections in Nigeria, stressing that unless the legacy of impunity for the grave electoral offences is combated and perpetrators, especially high-ranking politicians and their sponsors, are effectively prosecuted and voters provided with access to justice, those contemplating electoral crimes will face unconstrained in future elections. The group lamented that violence and other infractions have marred the nation's elections since 2015, urging Ampitan to ensure that any reform of the Electoral Act includes provision for the timely prosecution of electoral offences and access of voters to justice and effectiveness remedies for the violation of their fundamental rights. Serap urged the Commission's chief to prioritize the amendment of the Electoral Act 2022 to ensure the conduct of free and fair elections in 2027 in conformity with the provisions of the Nigerian Constitution 1999 as amended and the country's international obligations. Let's move now to Africa, where President Brice Oligui Nguema's Democratic Union of Builders, UDB, has secured a much-needed majority, result indicated after a second round of the parliamentary vote. The party was on course to win 55 seats in the 145-seat National Assembly. According to the National Electoral Body, the runoff vote was conducted in only 77 constituencies where no candidate won an absolute majority. The exercise concludes a political transition after an August 2023 coup by Nungmas ended 55 years of the Bongos family's rule over oil-rich Gabon. Still in Africa, Cameroonians have voted in an election that could see Africa's oldest leader, Paul Biya, extend his rule by another 7 years. Voters in Cameroon came to the polls yesterday in a presidential election that is expected to see 92-year-old Biya extend his 42-year rule for another 7 years. If victorious, President Biya would be 99 years old by the end of his new term, continuing his reign in a nation grappling with profound security and economic challenges. Political experts anticipate a win for Biya, who cast his ballot amid tight security at a primary school in the nation's capital, Yaoundé. On the foreign scene, the Israeli Defense Force (IDF) has confirmed that 7 Israeli hostages have been freed in Gaza and are now back in Israel. They include twin brothers Zik and Gali Behrman, who were pictured together in Gaza after being released. The force said 20 living hostages are due to be released today, as the Red Cross are now in southern Gaza to collect the other 13. In exchange for the hostages, Israel will release 250 Palestinian prisoners and more than 1,700 detainees. So on the foreign scene, China's government has said that Donald Trump's latest threat to impose an additional 100% tariff on Chinese goods is a typical example of U.S. double standards. A Commerce Ministry spokesperson also said China would introduce its own unspecified countermeasures if the U.S. president carries out his threat, adding it was not afraid of a possible trade war. Recall that on Friday, Trump hit back at Beijing's move to tighten its rules for rare earth export, accusing it of becoming very hostile and trying to hold the world captive. He also threatened to pull out of a meeting with Chinese President Xi Jinping later this month. Still to come in the news. Team Nigeria wins 36 medals as All-African Para Badminton ends in Abia State. Stay tuned for details of this in just a moment.
Broadening your horizon is what every living being not only genuinely desires, but heartily pursues and intentionally invests in. For in the gathering of men, only those whose minds are in tune with the dynamics of the past, present, and future innovations, inventions, politics, and governance are respected. We are Spectrum Television, and broadening your horizon is our obsession. Risk on your decoder now to connect connect Spectrum Television on the frequency 12589, symbol rate 26250. That is frequency 12589, symbol rate 26250. Polarization horizontal, and join our online community at spectrumtvlive.ng. For further inquiries, please call 0704 158 5642 or 0704 541 7707. Spectrum Television, broadening your horizon.
Spectrum TV, broadening.
Many thanks for staying tuned. This is Spectrum News at 10. On a business scene, the Minister of Solid Minerals Development, Dele Alake, has announced plans by the federal government to establish a new pre-shipment inspection agency for the solid mineral sector as part of ongoing efforts to plunge leakages and boost revenue generation. Alake disclosed these at a pre-event press briefing ahead of the 10th edition of the Nigerian Mining Week, scheduled to be held from October 13 to 15, 2025 in Abuja, where he explained that the new framework forms part of a broader regulatory and policy initiative aimed at blocking financial leakages and ensuring accountability within the sector. According to the minister, the move aligns with President Bola Tinubu's economic reforms agenda to enhance non-oil revenue, strengthen fiscal discipline, and reposition the mining industry as a major contributor to the country's GDP. Alake explained that plugging leakages remains one of the most effective short-term measures to increase government revenue without necessarily introducing new taxes. Still in business, the federal government debt owed to electricity generation companies has reportedly risen to 1.5 trillion naira in the first half of 2025. This is outstanding power subsidy payment to electricity generation companies covering the first and second quarters of the year. A report by the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission, second quarter's report for 2025 showed that the government incurred a subsidy obligation of 514.35 billion naira in the second quarter of 2025, following 536.40 billion naira in the first quarter, bringing the total to over 1.5 trillion naira in the first 6 months of the year. According to NEC, the rising obligation is due to the continued absence of cost-reflective tariffs, forcing the government to pay the difference between the actual cost of generation and what consumers are charged. In health, the National Agency for Food and Drug Administration and Control, NAFDAC, is partnering with the Nigerian National Medicine Development Agency, NNMDA, to develop scientifically proven safe and effective herbal medicines that meet international standards through properly designed clinical trials. In a statement signed by NAFDAC's media consultants, Sayo Akintola, and the Director General of NAFDAC, Professor Mojisola Adeyeye, they revealed that Nigerian herbal medicine practitioners possesses the capacity to formulate safe and effective indigenous natural remedies comparable to international standards. She, however, emphasized the need for scientific validation through clinical research to ensure the safety and the efficacy of such product. According to the World Health Organization (WHO), up to 80% of Africa's population relies on herbal remedies for primary health care. NAFDAC initiative aims to bridge the gap by ensuring that local herbal products are not only effective but also meet global scientific and regulatory benchmarks. Still in health, as the world marks World Arthritis Day, Dr. Chinonso Egweba, popularly known as Agroko Doctor, has raised awareness about the often overlooked impact of arthritis on young Nigerians. In a series of posts via X, Egweba emphasized that arthritis is not merely a sign of old age, but a condition threatening the dreams of young footballers, dancers, and entrepreneurs across the country. The medical professional referenced the 2025 World Arthritis Day global theme to urge with rheumatic diseases to pursue their personal aspiration despite their condition. What is it? What is it? Eh? Let's move now to sportswear. The All-African Para Badminton Championship 2025, hosted by Nigeria, has ended in Umuahia with Team Nigeria topping the medal chart with 36 medals including 10 gold, 13 silvers and 13 bronze. Kenya came second with 11 medals including 4 golds, 2 silvers and 5 bronze, while Egypt came third with 3 gold, 1 silver and 4 bronze among other results. Speaking at the closing ceremony held at the International Conference Center, Umuahia, Abia State Governor Alex Oti described the event as a celebration of resilience and unity, drawing participants from across African countries. The governor, represented by the Commissioner for Youth and Sport Development, Sir Nwaobi Ananaba, appreciated Benin Republic, to Egypt, to Cameroon, to Mozambique, to Tanzania, Rwanda, Congo, Kenya, and Burkina Faso for their participation. The governor equally appreciated the Badminton World Federation and the Badminton Confederation of Africa for their support, assuring that his administration is willing to host the event again next year. Still in sport, the Confederation of African Football (CAF) has confirmed that the 2026 FIFA World Cup playoffs will be played in Morocco. The mini-tournament will determine the countries that will represent Africa in the intercontinental playoffs. The semi-final fixtures are billed for November 13, 2025, while the final will be played November 16, 2025. 4 best second-place teams from the 9 groups will qualify for the playoffs. According to CAF, FIFA rankings in October will determine the seeding for the draw. The top-ranked countries will play against the 4th best, while the 2nd and the 3rd ranked teams will face each other. The winner will then take part in the Intercontinental Playoffs in March 2026. They will face countries from Asia, South America, Oceania, or CONCACAF for one spot at the tournament. And that's all we have for you at this time. Do ensure to follow us on social media, subscribe to the YouTube channel, all of which you can find on our social media at spectrumtvlive.ng. I am Emedion James and you've been watching Spectrum News at 10. Do enjoy the rest of your day and thank you for watching.